In the 1980s and 1990s, Malaysia was a thriving economy. I recall during that time, Malaysian ringgit to Singapore dollar was 1-to-1. Those good old days. And during that time, salary of the people were increasing so much so that private sector salary was way higher than government service. During that time, people from the government service would leave their job and join the private sector for better salary. But everything changed after 1997 when Asian financial crisis hit Malaysia. Ever since then, the gap between Malaysian ringgit and Singapore dollar has become so much more wider. Today is 3 ringgit to $1. That's not the only sad thing, even our salary went downhill. Median salary today in Malaysia is 2,250 ringgit. This means 50% of Malaysians are earning less than $600 per month. Now we can complain all we want, but the past is the past and nothing is going to change with complaints. In 2022, we voted in a whole new government. So the question is, where are we headed to after this? Recently, our Prime Minister Dato Sri Anwar Ibrahim announced the Ekonomi Madani plan, a clear plan to grow our economy and bring higher wage for the people. But what is this plan all about, and how is it really going to grow our economy and help our people earn more money? Well, if you've been following our channel for a while, you probably have remembered that I've always said that Singapore's success in their economy is due to their ability to transition away from the low-cost wage model into a higher value industry, therefore attracting higher value industry into their nation. But Malaysia, we have failed to do so all these years, especially after 1997. Now, moving ahead, the only way that Malaysia can move forward is to do the same. Focus on high-value industry and innovation. Well, it's not that government doesn't know, but in the past it was a lot of talks, but when it comes to execution of it,
Anytime, tanya saja, kena datang.
Anyway, in this new Ekonomi Madani plan, Dato Sri Anwar Ibrahim, our PMX, outlines the new Industrial Master Plan, NIMP, which will center around activities that offer high added value or economy sophistication. Wait, what's this all about? Okay, let me give an example. You know, instead of the OEM and the low value activity that sits at the lowest value of the semiconductor supply chain, he also talked about the chemical sector. Petrochemical and oleochemical companies should prioritize manufacturing specialty chemicals. Personally, I think this is a great national direction to move Malaysia's industry to a high value industry. He even announced an outcome-based tax incentive that will be introduced to support and reward companies focusing on high impact activity. Now you may be thinking, what's so special about that you just talk about it? Well, the truth is this is really important because it spells this out clearly in the Ekonomi Madani framework. Now, this will give confidence to investors to invest and put their efforts to grow in this area. So this time round, it's not like last time like that, just say only high value industry, but he gave specific examples, and that is very important because when he names it in such specificity, it gives confidence to investors to invest and put their effort to grow in these areas. Another thing that he highlighted is the direction and mission to upgrade industrial area with complete infrastructure and increase human capital development to meet the needs of investors. And he further mentions the petrochemical sector in Kerteh, Terengganu, the data center in Sedenak, Johor, and the downstream rubber industry in Kuala Nerang, Kedah.
Nice.
And to kickstart this, under the Ekonomi Madani framework, 100 million ringgit is allocated for efforts to complete the infrastructure of the industrial area, focusing on green concept. Again, specific mentions. Now, for those of you who are involved in the E&E sector in Penang and also the petrochemical industries, you're probably quite excited hearing all this, that your industry is being mentioned specifically. Having said that, we all know that just by improving the current infrastructure and encouraging this current industry to move towards high value is not enough. It is important for the government to outline a clear plan to drive innovation in this country. And that also, he did not leave it out. In the effort to drive an innovative economy, our PMX also highlighted some important initiatives. And this time round, for those of you guys who are in startups or potentially wanting to start a startup, listen up. Here are some goodies that you may find under the Ekonomi Madani framework. First, the government and GLICs will invest 1 billion ringgit of additional funds to match with private funds in order to support local startup and encourage technopreneur. That's a lot of money allocated for those of you technopreneurs out there. So what this 1 billion ringgit fund will cover? Well, it includes ensuring the provision of funds for each phase of high growth companies. Second, to expand and implement programs such as Corporate Hackathon and My Hackathon under Super 2021 to 2030. The idea is to bring people and creative startups closer to overcoming their problems. Now, this is really important because we know Malaysia don't lack talent. In fact, we have so many great startups in Malaysia, and very often in the past, these startups become a little bit more successful and then they start moving to overseas. Such a loss to Malaysia. Hopefully with this, it'll be able to grow more innovative startups in Malaysia and retain them within the Malaysia economy. And moving on next is the third aspect, which is to allocate an additional 100 million ringgit to intensify the research, development, commercialization, and innovation with a focus on industrial needs, renewable energy, food security, and new growth activities. Now, once again, this is not check-up only, but being very specific. Like I said in the past, many times I have mentioned about all these kind of things, but without specificity. So you don't really know what they're trying to focus on and what is the exact plan to go about. And this is why I think this Ekonomi Madani plan is quite different from the past. Anyway, this is also a part of the effort to achieve a gross domestic expenditure on R&D of 3.5% of our GDP by 2023. And to increase our position to the top 20 in the Global Innovation Index by 2025. Now, I think this is fantastic because as I've said in the past, Malaysia has not been focusing on R&D. We have not been focusing on innovation, and that's one of the main reasons why we fail to actually bring in high-value industries into Malaysia. And finally, for the first time, they are willing to address it at the root of the issue. Now, I have to say I'm rather impressed with this Ekonomi Madani framework because instead of coming up with a vague plan, it truly addresses the issues that we face and spells out a clear direction of where we need to head towards for an economic growth. Now, some of you may be thinking, this is considered clear, meh? Well, think about it, this is actually a high-level framework. Under this framework, there are other stuff such as the NIMP and NETR to actually complement with it to provide a clearer direction on how to grow the economy. So for a top-level framework, I have to say, it is already quite clear. For example, we can see the same clarity in the NETR, which is the National Energy Transition Roadmap that was announced as part of the plan under this Ekonomi Madani. Things are spelled out so clearly. They even identify the champions of each specific areas. So kudos to our new government, no more vague plans. Hey guys, do you know we just launched our newsletter? If you would like to have some exclusive weekly financial tips, some of our thoughts behind the scene, and
my thoughts about the market,
you can go to www.mrmoneytv.com to sign up for the newsletter. When you subscribe for the newsletter, you will get a retirement calculator. So what you waiting for? Sign up now! And I have to stress it again, this is really important because it gives business and investors clarity and direction. Only with such clarity, they can have confidence to continuously invest and build in this country. Now that we have all these big plans laid out, outlined on how it can clearly transform our industry, we have another very important challenge to address: development of local talents. If our local talents are not developed, all this industry will end up hiring expats and the growth will not translate to higher income for our rakyat, right? And that's the most important part, money in our pockets. And the root cause of our failure to develop local talents, I've always said it is education. And guess what? Under the Ekonomi Madani framework, he did not avoid this, but instead he addressed this issue of education. And why is it important to continuously improve our education to meet the demands of development? Here he highlights the need to strengthen cooperation with industries and employers, particularly in the implementation of TVET as practiced in institutions like Penang Skill Development Center. Okay, now you are wondering, what is this all about, right? Okay, just to give you a picture of it, PSDC is the first tripartite industry-led skill training training and education center in Malaysia, which means industry and education come together to train our local talents to have skill sets that are needed by the industry. In short, making our talents employable and building a streamline of local talents to meet the needs of industry development in this nation. So instead of just depending on low-skilled talent, we will develop high-skilled local talents that meet the demand of the industry and ultimately transiting into higher wage. You really do not know how happy am I to hear him mentioning this in the Ekonomi Madani framework. Because finally we are setting the direction right, and hopefully soon we'll see industries collaborating with the education system such as TVET to produce great talents with higher wage in future. Now, the truth is this, Malaysia has been an underdog for way too long. And it is not because we lack the talent, but we lack clear direction as a nation. In the past, a lot of things is just say any vague direction and just chuck up, but executions wise, meh. Now, if you watch many of my videos in the past, you will know what I mean. Well, I've always emphasized the need for Malaysia to spell out clear plans to grow this nation. Not just cakap sahaja, but to grow a high-value industry and to develop local talents. These two have to go hand in hand. A plan that doesn't have any one of this, it's just cakap sahaja. And this is the only way we are able to see growth in our economy and ultimately household income. End of the day, for a high-level piece of document like this, I have to say it has spelled things out as clearly as possible. Like I say, even when I read about the letter, I am not disappointed because the clarity that they have spelled out there has brought upon accountability to those champions that they name, providing a clear roadmap of how we can grow as a nation. Obviously, at the end of the day, all these are just plans. Ultimately, it will come down to execution, and we will have to just wait and see, because Rome is not built in a day. So hopefully, with the current policy and influx of FDI into Malaysia during this period, Malaysia can grow to its full potential. Because as we have mentioned before, Malaysia is currently sitting on a very crucial time frame where more and more countries are choosing to invest in Southeast Asia to diversify away from China. And we have the opportunity to have a second economy take off. Hopefully in future, it's gonna be Malaysia to Singapore ringgit 1-to-1. Say ni lah. So these are my thoughts on the Ekonomi Madani framework. But what about you? Do you think that this is clear enough? And do you think Malaysia truly has the opportunity to take off as a high-income nation in the next 5 to 10 years? Tell us in the comments below.